Stop dressing for summer like this after 60, because if you are an apple shape carrying weight in your middle, one specific summer habit you probably do without even thinking about it is quietly making your belly look bigger every single time the weather warms up. Not because of your body. Because of a handful of warm weather habits nobody ever taught you to question. In the next few minutes, I am going to show you 5 summer secrets that instantly change how your silhouette holds up in the heat, starting with things you probably already do without a second thought. Think about the last time you got ready for a summer outing, a barbecue, a beach day, a lunch on a sunny patio. You probably reached for the same handful of warm weather habits you have relied on for years: a cardigan tied somewhere for later, a swimsuit chosen quickly under fluorescent store lighting, a matching set that photographed beautifully online. None of those choices felt risky in the moment. And yet summer has a way of revealing exactly what does and does not work on your body far more honestly than any other season, simply because there is so much less fabric standing between your silhouette and the world. Summer dressing brings its own unique set of challenges that the rest of the year simply does not. Thinner fabric, more exposed skin, bright direct sunlight instead of soft indoor lighting, swimsuits, sundresses, and the constant temptation to layer something light over your shoulders the moment a breeze picks up. All of these summer-specific habits interact with an apple shape in ways that heavier winter clothing simply never reveals, which is exactly why certain mistakes only seem to show up once the temperature climbs. Winter clothing has a way of forgiving small mistakes that summer clothing simply does not. A heavy sweater can hide a mismatched proportion. A structured coat can hold its own shape regardless of what fabric happens to be underneath it. Summer offers none of that built-in forgiveness, which means the 5 habits we are about to cover matter considerably more between May and September than they would during the rest of the year, even though the underlying principles behind them apply to your body every single day, all year round. I want you to know something right now before we go any further. It was never your body creating that heavier, wider look you sometimes notice specifically in the summer months. It was almost always a warm weather habit working against you, one so ordinary and so automatic that you have probably never stopped to question it even once. I am going to walk you through 5 summer secrets today, counting down from 5 to 1, the exact warm weather mistakes I see apple-shaped women over 60 make again and again, often with habits they picked up decades ago and never revisited. Your body has never been the problem here. These are simple, learnable seasonal adjustments, the same practical knowledge a stylist relies on every single summer, and once you understand it, you will get dressed for warm weather completely differently from here forward. I promise you this. The last secret on this list, the number 1 detail, is the one almost nobody has ever had explained to them properly, and it is the single biggest change you can make to how every piece of your summer wardrobe actually performs once you step outside into real heat and real sunlight. It costs nothing extra to apply, and it works with clothes you already own just as well as it works on anything new. Once you understand it, you will never trust a fitting room mirror alone again for anything you plan to wear outdoors. So stay with me all the way to the end, because I really do not want you to miss it. Let's start at the beginning. Number 5. Tying a lightweight cardigan, jacket, or wrap around your waist whenever the temperature shifts or you need to cover a swimsuit for a few minutes. This is one of the most automatic habits in almost every woman's summer routine, and I understand exactly why it happens. It feels practical, it keeps your hands free, and it means you never have to carry an extra layer separately. But tying anything around your waist creates a thick, bulky knot sitting directly at the exact point on an apple shape that already carries the most fullness, and that knot adds a visible lump of extra fabric stacked right on top of your natural curve, precisely where you least want additional bulk drawing attention. The fix is remarkably simple once you notice the habit. Tie a cardigan or light jacket around your shoulders instead, letting the sleeves knot loosely at your collarbone rather than your waist. This keeps the same practical convenience, an extra layer within reach the moment you need it, while placing the bulk of the knot near your shoulders instead of your midsection, an area with far more visual room to absorb a little extra volume without consequence. If a shoulder tie genuinely does not work with a particular outfit, carrying the extra layer over your arm or inside a tote bag solves the problem just as completely without asking your waistline to do any of the work. This habit tends to be especially common at the exact moments you are most likely to be photographed, transitioning from a warm car into an air-conditioned restaurant, or covering a swimsuit briefly on the way to a pool bar. Those in-between moments, when a sweater gets quickly knotted at the waist for convenience, are precisely the candid shots that end up circulating in a family photo album or a phone gallery for years afterward. A shoulder tie takes exactly the same amount of effort as a waist tie, but it protects you from that specific kind of accidental, unflattering candid photo. The kind nobody plans for, but everyone ends up seeing again months later during a holiday slideshow. But the very next mistake flips something almost every woman assumes about the safest, smoothest choice for swimwear and sundresses, so stay with me for this one. Number 4. Assuming that the flattest, smoothest, most unstructured swimsuit or sundress fabric is automatically the safest, most flattering choice available. This belief makes sense at first glance, since a perfectly smooth, unbroken surface looks tidy and simple hanging on a rack. But completely flat fabric with no built-in structure has absolutely nowhere to go once it meets an actual curve on your body, especially once that fabric gets wet, clings from humidity, or simply moves against your skin throughout a hot afternoon. Instead of camouflaging anything, flat, unstructured fabric maps your exact shape in complete detail, with no strategic design element anywhere to work in your favor. The fix is choosing swimwear and summer dresses with diagonal shirring or ruching built into the fabric, rather than avoiding structure altogether. Diagonal shirring, meaning small, deliberate gathers running at an angle across the fabric, rather than in a flat, uninterrupted sheet, does real camouflaging work precisely because it creates its own subtle texture and movement, giving the eye something intentional to read, instead of the exact outline of your body underneath. This is different from horizontal gathering, which creates the same bulk stacking problem we have discussed in earlier videos about elastic waistbands. Diagonal shirring specifically angles across the body rather than running straight across it, which is exactly what makes it work so much better than either extreme, completely flat fabric on one end, or fully horizontal gathering on the other. You can spot the difference at a glance once you know what to look for. Hold a swimsuit or dress up and look at the direction any gathered lines actually run. If they travel straight across, parallel to the ground, that is horizontal gathering, and it behaves the same way any horizontal seam or elastic waistband does, drawing a line directly across your fullest point. If the gathered lines run at an angle, sweeping diagonally from one side toward the center or toward the hip, that is the shirring that actually works in your favor, breaking up the silhouette without creating a single hard line anywhere. This distinction matters just as much when shopping online, where you cannot feel the fabric or try it on before deciding. Zoom in on any product photograph and trace the direction of the gathering lines the same way you would in person. Most retailers photograph swimwear from angles that make this easy to see if you look closely, and a few extra seconds spent checking the direction of the shirring before adding something to your cart can save you an entire round of ordering, waiting, and returning something that was never built to work in your favor to begin with. Number 3. Choosing a matching two-piece summer set, a popular loungewear or resort-style pairing where both the top and the bottom gather or cinch at the exact same point on your waist. Matching sets have become enormously popular for warm weather, since they take the guesswork out of coordinating an outfit and photograph beautifully for a vacation or a summer gathering. But when the hem of the top and the waistband of the bottom both gather, elasticize, or cinch at precisely the same horizontal line, you end up doubling the bulk exactly where an apple shape already carries the most fullness, layering one gathered edge directly on top of another rather than letting either piece do its job independently. The fix is choosing a set where only one piece has structure or gathering at the waist, while the other piece flows past that point without any competing detail. A set with an elasticized waistband on the bottom pairs beautifully with a top that hangs loose and untucked well past your waistline, letting the fabric skim over the gathered point rather than sitting directly on top of it. Alternatively, if you love the coordinated look of a matching set specifically, look for one where the top's hem falls at a completely different height than the bottom's waistband, so the two gathered edges never actually meet or stack directly on top of each other on your actual body. If you already own a set where both pieces gather at the same height, you are not necessarily stuck. Simply wearing the top untucked and slightly longer, rather than tucked in as the set was originally styled on a model, moves the visible bulk of the top's hem away from the bottom's waistband, breaking up what would otherwise be one doubled-up point of gathered fabric. It is a small adjustment, but it changes the entire visual effect of a set you might have otherwise assumed simply did not work for your body, And it means you do not have to retire a set you already love simply because of how it happened to be styled in a catalog photo. We are now more than halfway through this list, and if you are already picturing a specific summer outfit hanging in your own closet, that is exactly the point of this video. Warm weather dressing gets almost no dedicated styling attention compared to the rest of the year, mostly because everyone assumes summer clothes are inherently simple, when in fact thinner fabric and more exposed skin actually make these particular mistakes considerably more visible than heavier winter layers ever would, revealing far more than a bulky sweater or a lined coat ever could. And remember, the number one secret on this entire list, the biggest change you can make, is still coming, so do not go anywhere yet. Number 2. Buying a swimsuit, a pair of shorts, or a sundress based entirely on how it looks standing perfectly still in a fitting room mirror, without ever checking how the hemline or leg opening behaves once you actually sit down. This mistake hides itself completely while you are standing upright, which is exactly why it catches so many women by surprise later, usually while relaxing in a beach chair, a pool lounger, or simply sitting down for lunch on a patio. The moment you sit and your body naturally folds at the hip, a hemline or leg opening that looked perfectly smooth while standing can suddenly pull tight and cut a hard horizontal line directly across your hip or belly crease, an effect you never would have predicted from the standing mirror alone. The fix is doing a seated test before you ever commit to buying summer-specific pieces, especially anything with a fitted leg opening or a straight hemline sitting near your hip. Sit down fully in the fitting room chair, lean back the way you actually would in a lounge chair or a low patio seat, and check whether the fabric pulls tight or continues to sit comfortably. A swimsuit or a pair of shorts that passes this seated test is going to serve you through an entire pool afternoon or a long lunch outdoors, while one that only looks good standing still is likely to reveal its actual behavior at the exact moment you are trying to relax the most. This particular check matters most for shorts and swim bottoms with a fitted leg opening, since the angle your hip creates while reclining is dramatically different from the angle it holds while you are standing upright in front of a mirror. A leg opening cut generously enough to sit smoothly in both positions is doing considerably more design work than one that only accounts for a single standing pose, and you will only discover which category a specific piece falls into by actually testing both positions yourself before you buy it. The same principle extends to sundresses worn for long car rides to a summer destination or extended time spent sitting at an outdoor concert or a garden party. A hemline that behaves beautifully for a quick errand can behave very differently after 2 or 3 hours of continuous sitting, since fabric tends to shift and settle further the longer you remain in one position. If you know a particular dress is destined for a day involving a great deal of sitting, testing it seated for a full minute or two rather than a quick 5-second check gives you a far more accurate picture of how it will actually hold up. Now, before we get to the number one secret on this entire list, I want to explain exactly why everything else we have covered matters so much less without it. The waist knot placement, the diagonal shirring, the matched set structure, the seated hemline check, every single one of those fixes genuinely helps, but every one of them is still working around one central principle that decides more than all of the others combined. Once you understand this final piece, you will never buy a piece of summer clothing again without applying it first. Number 1. Ignoring the difference between how a garment performs under soft, still, artificial fitting room lighting and how it actually performs outdoors in bright natural sunlight while your body is genuinely moving. This is the exact principle almost nobody ever explains, and it might be the single most important concept in this entire 5-part series. More important than any individual fabric choice, more important than any individual cut, more important than almost anything else we have discussed today. Summer clothing gets tested under exactly the wrong conditions almost every single time. You try something on standing still, under flattering, dim fitting room lighting, and you make your decision entirely based on that one narrow snapshot, even though you are going to wear the piece outdoors under harsh direct sun while actually moving, sitting, bending, and sweating through a completely different set of real-world conditions. Here is exactly why this gap matters so much more in summer than at any other time of year. Bright natural sunlight reveals sheerness that indoor lighting hides completely, exposing exactly how much of your shape or your undergarments show through a thin fabric the moment you step outside. Movement reveals whether shirring, gathering, or structure is actually doing its job, or whether it was only ever designed to look good frozen in one static pose. Heat and humidity reveal how fabric clings once you start to perspire even slightly, an entirely different behavior than the same fabric sitting cool and dry under air conditioning in a fitting room. None of these three conditions, sunlight, movement, and heat, exist in a typical dressing room, which means almost every single summer purchase gets evaluated under precisely the conditions least likely to predict how it will actually perform. The fix is building a genuine daylight and movement check into how you buy anything for warm weather, and it takes only an extra minute or two before you commit to buying something. If you can, step outside briefly while wearing the piece, even just to a window with strong natural light streaming through, and look at yourself in a way you would never bother to in a store. Sit down, bend forward slightly, raise your arms, turn in a full circle. If a fitting room does not allow you to step outside, at minimum hold the fabric up to the brightest light available and move around in it as much as the space allows, rather than simply glancing at yourself standing perfectly still. This one small habit catches sheerness, shirring failure, and unexpected clinging before you ever get home, rather than discovering all three at once during an actual pool afternoon or beach vacation. This same principle applies just as much to swimwear you order online, sight unseen, based only on a photograph of a model standing in perfect studio lighting. The moment a package arrives, try the piece on immediately, in a room with the brightest natural light available, and put it through the same sitting, bending, and stretching test before the return window closes. Waiting until the morning of a trip to try something on for the first time removes any chance to catch a problem while there is still time to exchange it, which is exactly how so many women end up discovering a sheer or clinging swimsuit for the very first time standing on an actual beach. I had a client, a lively and adventurous woman named Karen, who told me she had returned more summer purchases than winter ones for years, without ever quite understanding the pattern. Dresses that looked wonderful in the store somehow felt sheer the moment she stepped into her backyard. Swimsuits that seemed perfectly structured on the hanger clung strangely the moment she actually got into the pool. She had started to assume, quietly and without ever saying it out loud, that summer clothing simply did not work as well for her body as clothing for the rest of the year did, and she had genuinely started dreading the annual ritual of swimsuit shopping months before summer even arrived. When we talked through her shopping habits together, the pattern became obvious almost immediately. She was making every single warm weather decision standing still under fitting room lighting. Exactly the one setting least likely to reveal how any of those pieces would actually behave once she was living her real summer life in them. We did not change her body, and we barely changed her actual taste in swimwear or sundresses. We simply added one habit, stepping toward the nearest window or doorway and moving around before committing to anything. Within a single season, her return rate dropped dramatically, and she told me she finally understood that summer clothing was not somehow harder for her body specifically. It was simply being tested under the wrong conditions the entire time. She still laughs about how much dread she used to feel walking into a swimsuit department, dread that simply evaporated once she understood what she had actually been missing in every fitting room mirror. That is the real power of understanding all 5 of these summer secrets together, rather than fixing just one and calling it done. Your body was never the problem, and it never needed a smaller size, a stricter diet, or a different shape to finally enjoy warm weather dressing. These are simply seasonal habits and testing conditions, ones that either reveal a garment's true behavior or quietly hide it until the worst possible moment, and now you know exactly what to check before you ever commit to wearing or buying something again. None of this requires an entirely new summer wardrobe, a dramatic budget, or waiting for cooler weather before you allow yourself to feel comfortable getting dressed. It requires tying an extra layer at your shoulder instead of your waist, choosing diagonal shirring over completely flat fabric, checking whether a matched set doubles up at the same point on your body, sitting down before deciding a hemline works, and above all, testing anything new in real daylight and real movement before you ever wear it out the door. Small, informed choices, made once in the fitting room or right at home, rather than discovered with quiet disappointment halfway through a hot summer afternoon. The next time you unpack a new swimsuit or a fresh sundress for the season, resist the urge to simply glance in the mirror and decide it will do. Walk to the nearest window. Sit down in it. Move your arms the way you actually would reaching for a drink or a sun hat. Those few extra seconds, spent testing a garment the way summer itself is actually going to test it, will save you far more disappointment than any amount of careful shopping under artificial lighting ever could, and it is a habit that, once formed, costs you nothing but a minute of your time for every single warm season ahead, for as many summers as you have left to enjoy in clothes that actually work with you, instead of against you. If any part of this felt like it was speaking directly to a summer habit you already have, I would love to know which secret surprised you the most. Was it the waist knot, the flat fabric myth, or that final detail about testing in daylight and movement? Tell me in the comments below, because your story might be exactly what helps another woman finally understand that it was never her body working against her in the heat. Just a few small habits she never had the chance to learn about until now.